Thank you everybody for joining us on our very first seminar and webinar session for the Poetica Marketing Summer Webinar Series. This is our very first installment. We're going to be focusing on content marketing and content strategy. And I am thrilled to be joined by Jules from the Business of Marketing. So I just want to do a quick introduction for all of us. So my name is Pat. I founded Poetica Marketing. We're a content marketing agency and events coordination company that was founded in 2018. And as a content marketing agency and events company, we help companies stand out online and in person. It's primarily a two-person team. So it's myself. I manage virtually all of the content. And I'm joined by my lovely wife, Regina, who is our events coordinator. And so we love working with small and medium businesses in Pittsburgh and around the country, and even a few clients up in Canada as well. And I'm thrilled to have Jules with us today. Jules, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jules. I am the founder of the Business of Marketing, and the Business of Marketing specializes in strategic brand management for established businesses, new to the world brands, and even individuals actually looking to build a brand themselves. Ultimately, it was founded on the belief that everyone, every business, every brand deserves marketing that works, and we help you build it.
Yeah, really well said. I've been fortunate enough to work with Jules on a couple projects. She has a really sharp strategic mind. So she's really talented in both implementing plans, but also building them out as well. So really quick, we're obviously in this session today. Next week on Tuesday, we have our SEO session. That's our search engine optimization session with Misha Gerhardt of Red Tree Web Design, which is a fantastic web agency here in Pittsburgh. The following week on Wednesday, I'll be talking about blogging and how that can impact your business. And then the very last day of the month, that Wednesday, we'll talk about email marketing with Dan Simpkins of DX Performance, which is another digital marketing agency out here in Pittsburgh. So I'm very excited. I think most of you in attendance and everyone who registered signed up for all of these. But if you haven't yet, feel free to sign up for those. And if you need a promo code for any of them, I'd be happy to send that along. Just shoot me an email afterwards and I'll send that to you. For today's agenda, we're going to go through multiple phases. All of you have the opportunity and ability to speak if you have any questions. I'm going to ask you to keep your mic off during the session, but if you have any questions, feel free to speak up and just kind of interrupt. I want this to be a little bit more of a conversation, more than a lecture, a boring lecture. But we'll start off the day talking about what content marketing is. And then we'll talk about why we're all actually content marketers, whether we realize it or not. We'll talk about a few examples of what's possible with content marketing, and then Jules is going to lead us in understanding content strategy. We'll talk about some of the tools inside your content marketing toolkit, and that's going to be pretty exciting because there's a lot more than you might realize. We'll talk about an example of real-world content strategy. We'll look at how all of this fits nicely into the buyer's journey. Then we'll have some final thoughts, and then we'll have some time at the end for all of you to ask questions for anything else you might be curious about. So let's start by talking about what content marketing is. We do have a beefy sort of definition there, but in most simple terms, content marketing is the process of creating and publishing content to build trust and drive sales with our target audience. And I want to take a moment to define this idea of content because it is a very broad term. It covers copy, it covers video, it covers bus wraps, bus station signs, it covers any sort of graphic that you create or post on social media. It covers a little video snippet that you might post to Facebook Reels or YouTube Shorts. Everything that we can create in any capacity has the potential to be content and can be used from that marketing lens and as a way to build trust and drive real world business results with your target audience. And with that in mind, we're all actually content marketers. Whether you realize it or not, you have the ability to become a content marketer and becoming a content marketer on behalf of your own business. You already have a foundation for this. So if you've ever posted to LinkedIn, if you've ever sent an email out to a prospect, if you've ever posted an artsy image on Instagram, you have the foundations for content marketing. And when we start thinking about this from a strategy perspective, when we start using this content with intention, we can drive really great business results for our companies. So let's talk about what's possible with content marketing because we often talk about, blogs or fancy images or a really slick video. But what are some of the business outcomes that are possible from all of this? Jules and I are going to run through three really quick case studies just to kind of give you a glimpse of what we've done in the past and what you can do in the future with the right tools and strategies in place. So one example we like to talk about at Poetica is our record store example. So we were working with an online record store. It was very small. It was a one-person shop. And on a daily basis, they would do about $300 to $600 in revenue on a good day. So that wasn't profit, that was just revenue. And then, so they had a lot taken out of there. And he came to us one day at a very interesting request. He said, Pat, I can afford you for 4 hours. What kind of strategy could you build for me in 4 hours for my third anniversary sale for the store? It was a really interesting proposition. Nobody had ever really asked it like that before. But we had some assets for his business that we had used on a previous campaign with him. And so what we did was we built out a really well-timed social media campaign that aligned exactly and time-wise with an email campaign. So same messaging on both ends, same sort of warm up to that one day sale, and same cadence throughout that sales day as well. And by the end of it, he came just shy of $10,000 in gross revenue for that anniversary sale. I think the day before he had done about $300 or $400 in revenue. So he went, $300 or $400 one day and then close to $10,000 the next day just by being really strategic with social media and email. Another example we talk about a lot is my music blog that I used to run that focuses on like the rock and metal underground. And through that, we used to partner a lot with bands, record labels, and record stores as well. And on the site, we had a piece of gated content. So, gated content is just any sort of downloadable asset that somebody has to give you an email for. And then when you take that email or that phone number, you're able to put them through your sales funnel and contact them later. So we had this piece of gated content on how to market your band better. And it was really valuable. People loved it, especially bands, because they don't get a lot of really good guidance from marketing professionals. So in one Instagram post that we put out for Monster Riff, the blog, we generated 20 leads, so 20 downloads for that white paper in 24 hours. And then we had a sales call from one of those leads set up later that week, which later closed. So one Instagram post turned into 20 leads, which turned into a few sales conversations, but one close afterwards. So a little bit of effort, a nice payout at the end. Jules, what do you have for us?
That was great. Yeah. So what Pat's been hitting on is really that sales and leads are our ultimate goal, right? But there are different metrics that we look at when we're trying to build towards that. So he's looking and giving us great examples about moments in time. But what if you want to build something a little bit longer term and need to get a lift over a couple months rather than maybe just in one moment in time? What we look at for that is a series of awareness, consideration, metrics that you see on the screen. So what I did here was this is a construction services industry client that I was working with. And what we were able to do with consistent posting, we just picked LinkedIn for this one, organic posting on LinkedIn over 6 months was increase engagement on those posts by 4 times and then increase click-through by over 6,000%. The reason why these types of things are essential when we're looking at building an overall marketing campaign is it shows interest and it helps us understand how we can then retarget what people are acting to and reacting to and wanting to engage with us on. So this can allow us to create and build off of those awesome moments that Pat described to then create a sustainable flow of intake based off of what people are engaging with on different platforms. So no matter what, sales and leads always the primary goal and what we're trying to do, but we oftentimes back it up and measure a couple other steps along the way towards those sales and leads. So when you hear us talking about eyeballs or reach, impressions, right? That's the very first type of metric that we look at. And then we layer down into, okay, now once they've looked at our content, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to engage with it? Are they going to pass it by? And then we finally get to the, okay, they're going to take an action to purchase. The reason why this is so important to build nowadays is that on average, it takes 9 times of interacting with a brand or a product or a service before someone actually makes a decision to purchase and spend their money on it. Now, 9 times is a lot, and we know there's a lot of noise out there. So as marketers, we will back it up for you guys and we'll help you understand, okay, what can we possibly influence before we get to that sale? And so this is an example to complement what you saw with the ultimate end goals of sales and sales and leads, and how we can look at different levers to pull along our path to developing those sales. All right. So now let's talk about content strategy. Why is it important? This is oftentimes the step that people like to skip. However, it is a critical foundation. I mean, ultimately what we're doing when we create a content strategy is we're creating a roadmap for your business for how to develop the best growth driving content. And it's essentially a proven process that does all of these wonderful things on this list, right? So we improve operational efficiencies. Great. We have content that is aligned to organizational growth goals. What does that mean? That means sales driving goals, right? So whether it's getting in front of more people or converting more people, selling more to those people, that's an organizational growth goal. It also ensures that our content across all platforms, years, and anyone working on it is continuous and consistent and looks the same, feels the same, and is what our customers have come to expect from us. It also helps with efficiencies and sustainable returns on your marketing investments. So this is important because oftentimes when we skip the strategy step, what we get into is this cycle of throwing something against the wall, hoping it works, and if it doesn't stick, oh well, we move on. But we have no way to then measure and optimize on that content, right? But if you have a content strategy and you know what pieces of content are intending to influence what goals, you know exactly why it didn't work when you look at the metrics and how you can possibly change it. So in addition to making everything more sustainable, efficient, aligned, continuous, it also does when you're part of a larger organization or even have a couple partners you're working with, it helps with expectation management for stakeholders. So for some of our clients, and I'm not sure if this might characterize any of you guys on here, but for sometimes you've got multiple people you have to convince, and you have multiple people looking at your metrics or looking at your investments and trying to figure out, are we spending our money and our time in the right way? Well, when you don't have a content strategy, you end up measuring things in a very ad hoc, in the moment, sporadic, whatever word you want to choose, just not consistent way, and you don't know what necessarily you're measuring it against. Once you've built a content strategy, you know exactly what you're measuring against, when, where, how, and why. And so we'll go into exactly how you build this on the next slides, but ultimately it helps you connect. Why do we do this, right? It's because you want to be able to connect with people in a way that matters to them. And the very last sentence on this slide here is so that we can cut through the noise and accelerate growth. Yes, but ultimately it's so noisy and crowded in every industry, on every platform. The only way we can possibly reach people effectively is being able to strategically talk to them when they want, where they want, how they want. Pat's examples did exactly that, right? And it was because they had a set strategy. So we can take a minute and I can just say, if there's any questions about what it is, why it's important, what it gets you, we can pause for a second and you guys can unmute yourselves, or we can just hop to the next slide. I'll give you guys a couple seconds. All right, Pat, shall we? All right, so most importantly, how do we create it? But also, I threw this word in here, algorithm proof, not just growth focus. Growth is great, but algorithm proof, because yes, this goes past just social media, but social media is oftentimes the biggest bear and frustration for people. So I wanted to say in here, it's not just blogging, it's not just email, it is also including social. And it's doing so in a way that is algorithm proof. That's why we start to build like this. How do we do that? Well, you see these 5 components on the right-hand side: target persona, competitive opportunity analysis, unique value prop, point of view, content pillars. These 5 items work together when they are built methodically to create an increased ROI overall. So let's talk about what each of these are, because I'm sure you've heard many of these terms, but there's a lot of different definitions out there. So I want to really hone in on what are the most effective definitions to help you get the content you need across all platforms. Target persona. And you'll notice there's a 1 in front of it. It doesn't mean that you won't ever drill down into a more specific target persona, but when we're talking about an overall content strategy, you need to be looking for the overarching comprehensive mindset that extends across all of your target personas. Okay. So you might have a couple different demographics. Like you might say, well, you know what, we market to 45 and plus, and we also market to 18 to 25. They're different. That's okay. That's fine. But their mindset on what you're offering, there's got to be a commonality within that so we can talk to them in that way. So ultimately, what we're doing here is meeting our people where they already are. And this very detailed target persona helps us understand and identify exactly what our audience wants and needs from us so that we create content that feels more social and natural to them. Because really what we're trying to do is socialize with them enough that they trust us and then buy from us. Okay. The next one, competitive opportunity analysis. A lot of people will toss in a SWOT analysis. It's not really necessary. Honestly, it's a little bit too intensive for something like this. What we're looking to do here is mini audits of industry leaders and your key competitors. Why? Because we want to see where is there a gap in what they're producing or what they're offering, and then how can we fill that? Because if there's a gap in what they're offering, that means our target audience is feeling that gap. That also means we have the opportunity to swoop in and solve that gap for them. The next one on here, unique value proposition. That's the analytical value you provide to your audience. Said differently, it's what you do and how you do it better than anyone else, which is a very important thing to our customers and our target audiences. The next one, point of view, that's the emotional side. So if your unique value prop is your more analytical side, your point of view is your why. It's what captures the emotional value our target seeks from us so that we can then form content that speaks directly to their deeper aspirations or problems. And those are all deeper emotional connection points. So you have both sides that matter, and we want to speak to our people in both ways. What's really cool about these 2 things, unique value prop and point of view, is when we're building out the content pillars, which is the next one, each content pillar is connected to a specific business growth goal. And there are 3. We mentioned them before. I'll bring them up again in a second. Each of these components, unique value prop and point of view, attaches to a specific business goal. So you know exactly what type of content you need to create, what lever, what value you need to touch on for your audience in order to instigate and create a result for that goal you have. So what does that mean? Those 3 goals are either want to generate demand, which is get in front of more people, right? Have more people see us, get more eyeballs. The next one is we want to convert that demand that we have, right? Get more people to take an action. Typically here we're talking about leads, sales, something like that, maybe a click. And the last one is we want to sell more to them or get them to advocate for us. So those are the 3 business goals that we're always trying to do when we are looking to increase sales. And the great thing about unique value prop and point of view is for each of those business goals, we are going to use only one of those types of value for each. So for example, and Pat, actually, you know what? You can hop to the next slide for this one.
I
When we're
don't,
talking,
Jules, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut you
yeah,
off. This is great value. I have a couple of questions, if you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
mind, if I don't cut off your
No,
momentum
no,
there.
go for it.
Couple things that I would love to get your perspective on. You started this slide talking about the algorithm, and I think
Mm,
that, one of the things that we talked about in preparing for this is sort of the distraction of the algorithm. When we think about SEO, we're really focused on how do we rank, how do we rank, how do we rank, and sometimes that doesn't really fulfill our business needs. And then on social media, Everyone is just talking about how do we go viral? How do we go viral? How do we go viral? And there are so many different components of
Mm,
marketing that are beholden to an algorithm of some sort. Can you talk a little bit more
yeah,
about how people should think about that and whether or not that's counterproductive? And then my
sure.
second question for you then is about the value proposition. I meet a lot of business owners who are, say, a business coach, and we'll have this question at the beginning of our discovery: what is your unique value proposition? Like, what makes you different? And they'll just kind of shrug and say, I don't know, I'm a business coach. People come to me when they need answers. How do you recommend people think about what differentiates them from the competition?
Yeah. Okay. Making a note here on that one. Okay, let's start with the algorithm proof one. I'm going to say something funny and then I'm going to give you the serious side. We don't work for Facebook. We don't work for Meta. We don't work for Twitter. We don't work for LinkedIn. We work for our businesses, right? So when we say algorithm proof, what we mean is we don't want to be a fast follower on some hot trend that's going to be gone the next day. Why? Because we're not creating content that is authentic to our business. I'll say the caveat of that is sometimes there's a really happy crossover that happens just because whatever content we're creating happens to be excellent for some algorithm focused trend that they've put out. That's great. That's wonderful. Viral is never the goal because that is not a quality lead. What you want is the people who are genuinely connecting with what your brand is, what they stand for, why you exist, and also what value you provide. So going viral is great. Eyeballs is fun when you're in entertainment. Okay, so if you're an entertainer and looking to get people to laugh or smile, you don't want them to purchase? Sure. You want as many eyeballs on your stuff as possible, but that doesn't mean they're going to convert. Entertainment is incredibly different than business and sales. All right. Now, as business people, we can entertain with our content, but our entertaining content is not converting to a sale. It's just going to get someone to laugh, engage, and move on. So when we say we don't want this to be algorithm proof, what we mean is your content should always focus on the value your business provides to people and speak to them on that level. Think about it like when you're meeting someone for the first time and you can think of a networking event, a social event, doesn't matter. You're meeting a human being. What do you do? Do you try to just make them laugh? Do you try to make them feel seen and heard? And by the way, you want to form a connection with this person. Do you give them your whole resume? Do you talk nothing about yourself? No, what you're probably going to do is say, let me find a connection point that we have that can make you feel like I understand you, I value you, and I like you. It's a social interaction, right? You're trying to make them like you and make them want to spend time with you, which really ultimately means they feel seen and heard by you. It's the same exact thing when it comes to social media, especially. SEO is a little bit different, so I won't touch on that one just yet. But when we're on social, we want our targets to feel like we understand them. We see them, we hear them, we care about what they care about, period. We're not giving them our resume list. We're not trying to just make them laugh and be a class clown, right? We're not trying to say like, oh, let's talk about the house, right? Or the algorithm that we're in. Let's really lean into that. What we're saying here is let's get to know each other. Let's form an actual genuine connection and relationship. We do that by focusing only on what our business's value is to them. All right. Now, one brief side note. Let's take a band, right? Bands do need to sell tickets, but they are also entertaining, right? And they are providing musical value, entertainment, joy. But the caveat with this is they're not doing it in a way that is only beholden to what the algorithm says. They're doing it in a way that is authentic to them still. It's their entertainment style, their length, their decibel of music, their tone, all of it, right? It is still in that realm, yes, entertaining, but it is still within their specific brand and their strategy. Pat, does that answer that question
Yeah,
well enough?
that was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. And the next one you asked was when developing a unique value proposition, how do we differentiate ourselves from the competition? How do we think about that?
Yeah, well, how do we start that process of figuring out what makes us different?
hmm yeah, it's a great question. So we start that process by starting with our target always. So if you notice, this isn't an order. It is in an order. Target personas first, then a competitive opportunity analysis, and then we define our unique value proposition. Because what we need to know, first of all, it's all about our people, all about our target, period. 100% of the time. There is not an exception to this. So if we know who our target is, and if we know the problems that they face, the issues that they're trying to overcome, their inner feelings and emotions about something, the pitfalls that they experience within our industry, then we start to understand what can we do to help solve that, and that solution is part of our unique value proposition. The competitive opportunity analysis helps us see if there's a significant gap or even a little gap that we can then take advantage of or capitalize on. And sometimes there's not a gap in this massive way that we think we see, like a massive white space opportunity. Sometimes it's something small where someone's providing a good value, but you think you can tweak it and provide something better. That is your unique value proposition, right? How you do something better than the competition for your specific target. So I'll give you an example of Pat and I right now. Pat and I are in the same space for a lot of businesses, right? They would look at us and go, okay, marketing agencies, got it. How I need one, I don't need both, right? But Pat and I do very different things. And it's not that either one of us couldn't support a business on our own. We do very successfully. Our clients do not have a lot of overlap. However, when we each talk about our businesses, we're talking slightly to different people and in slightly different ways. Okay. So I'm talking more on one side of the strategic, like, let's set you up, let's do this. And Pat's saying, I'm going to execute, I'm going to make sure that you guys have this, this, and this. And he's got a specialty and I have a specialty. So broadly speaking, similar target. When we drill down into mindset too, both of our targets shift a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. It's wonderful. And that's also why we end up working together in some capacities, because we complement each other. You'll notice in your industries, you'll have a lot of overlap. That's okay. But there are little adjustments you can make based off of what a more drilled down target needs from you that you can solve better or in a distinct way for them that your competition cannot. Okay. So when we think about it, don't jump directly into trying to define this until you have a very clear understanding of who your target is, what they care about, why they care about it, and then what your competition's doing. Then you can say, all right, here's how I do it better. Here's what I do and how I do it better.
That was perfect. Very eloquent. Thank you. And I
Thank you, Pat.
apologize again. You had such wonderful momentum talking about content
It's
pillars,
okay.
and I will get you over onto that slide now.
It's okay. This is a lot of heady stuff too. I know I'm throwing a lot of terms at you guys. So if there's any clarification you need, you want me to go back, let me know. Or if you want an example too, please do not hesitate to jump in. All right, let's see. So I mentioned this on the previous slide. Every single piece of content you create, and I do mean every single piece, should deliver on a business goal. Some of you might go, oh, why, Jules? That doesn't make sense. That feels suffocating or that feels like too much. Well, here's the thing. As business owners, as brands, as people trying to build a brand, we need our time and our resources and our money to be used as efficiently as possible, right? We want to see a return for the effort we put in. Okay, so if we are creating content that we know is attached to a business goal, we're more likely to see that return. And if we're not seeing it, we know how to optimize to get there. But if we are not doing this, there's really no way to know if we're actually being as efficient with our time and our money. And, we all don't have a lot of it. Time is a limited resource. So what we're looking to do here, and why I say every piece of content should deliver on a business goal, is because I want you guys to be able to have access to know that the content you produce across any platform is going to work, or you know how to measure it to make it better. Okay. So let me dive in here with those three business goals and talk a little bit about what each of them are, how we measure them, and honestly, kind of why each of them matter. I'll go into a little bit more information than we went to on the first slide. So generating demand content specifically. This is all about eyeballs, people who see us and are choosing to actually engage with our brand. So when we're looking at this type of business goal and this type of content, we are measuring things like followers, traffic, impressions, reach, eyes, right? How many people are aware we exist? This is highest level. If any of you guys know the marketing funnel, it is that very top part. But this one's ultimately the first goal. We need people to be aware of us so that there's some type of demand that's there for what we're doing. That's the first one. And if you think about it this way, the more people who know you exist, the more people have an opportunity to connect with you and then ultimately purchase something from you to use your business and the value you provide. It's our financial opportunity, right? The next one, demand conversion content, that is all focused on getting people to take an action. So Pat's examples, demand conversion that you saw before. My examples actually of engagement, not real. The clicks were, the engagement rate, not necessarily. And this is where we have a little bit of a nuance, right? Clicks is showing an action. Liking a post, not necessarily an action. That actually is more of an indication of demand generation than it is conversion. So we get into these little layers here of how we want to measure whether or not it's working. With demand conversion, we're looking at clicks, buys, leads, right? Those three things, almost always. I'm sure there's uh, something I'm forgetting that's a caveat to that, but those are the major ones that matter the most. There are revenue drivers, simply put, right? This is where our money making happens. Then the next one, loyalty building, advocacy building content. These two things, one, it's either about increasing your customer lifetime value, so repeat purchases, right? Or referring new clients, doing our advertising for us. And when we look at those types of metrics, we want to look at your customer lifetime value, the dollar value, how high do they go up? We could look at referral programs. How often are those used? How often are they shared? If we're looking specifically at social or maybe blog posts, what we're looking at is sharing. Do people share that? And how are they sharing it? Or on social too, it could be tagging their friends, saying, oh, this is the brand I've been telling you about. You've got to check them out. That is this content pillar of loyalty and advocacy building. So to sum this up, when we build content directly for each of these goals, we have content that specifically aligns to what people need in order to make that decision that we want them to make to hit those goals. Okay. There are a lot of different marketing tactics and tools that are available to us within each of these goals to help drive them forward for our customers and for our target. But by building a thorough and strong content strategy, you know which ones are actually effective for your audience and can actually be sustainable for your business, right? So effective and sustainable are the two main things that we get when we start with strategy. And I will end before I turn this back over to Pat to go through all those wonderful tools and tactics. What I will say is it is whether you're starting off or whether you're in the middle of all your content, it will always be worth your time to take a pause for a week or two, set that strategy, and come back in with that elevated strategy. It is always going to be more worth your time to take that time off, set that strategy correctly, than posting things if you don't know they're working or not, because then you're not necessarily being efficient and effective with your efforts. And that's what we want to do as business owners, get the maximum amount of return possible for what we're putting in. Thank you guys. And if you have any questions, I will pop back on after.
Thank you, Jules. Well said. And to Jules' point, this part as the business owner isn't always difficult. It's time intensive. And to that point, it takes time to do the research. It takes time and effort to make a change. But when you make that change and you shift in that strategy, you'll see a much better ROI than doing the same old that everyone else is doing and that isn't benefiting you already. So, as Jules said, picking the right tools starts with that upfront research and understanding who your target audience is, what your goals are. And once you understand that, and you understand, as to her point, what is sustainable and executable on your end, it becomes a pretty easy choice. And there are a lot of choices out there. And some of them are more creative, some of them are more strategic, some of them are more hands-on, and some of them are very hands-off. But I split these into two different lists here, what is digital and what is physical. And I don't want you to get overwhelmed by these lists. They are kind of long, but I do want to spend couple sentences talking about each one because all of these different tools are part of your marketing toolkit. All of them have different advantages and disadvantages, and some of them are going to be great fits for your target audience and your business, and some of them might not be great fits for your target audience. But it's really up to you and figuring out what your target audience cares about, what's a good match for your brand, and what's sustainable. And that word sustainable is very important because a lot of companies, they have really great ideas and they build up a lot of energy and momentum early on, and then they start a podcast. And they fizzle out after the third episode because it's more work than they thought, and they just don't have the energy for it anymore. And we see this not just with podcasts, but tons of different types of content. So that word sustainable is essential to making sure that you have a really strong long-term strategy. But let's take a look at some of your options. Your website obviously is a great tool because it's a salesperson that works when you're not working. This is a great place for you to house so much of your content marketing strategy, like your videos, blogs, content, all of your services and products. This is something that works on your behalf and is discoverable when you are not physically working on your business. Blogging is a great strategy because it allows you to generate more traffic to your website, and it allows you to reach people at the awareness, consideration, and decision stages of the sales funnel. So from the moment they figure out that they have a problem or are just looking for information to the moment they're ready to buy, you have an opportunity to connect with them through your blog. SEO is search engine optimization. This is literally just the process of ranking better on Google, Bing, and other search engines. This is a great way for you to rank and show up in more places, especially as people are looking for information and looking for a solution to the problems that they have. Your social media is another great way to connect with people. As Jules suggested, this is a great way for you to make personal connections between either yourself and the brand and your target audience. Gated content, I mentioned earlier, but gated content is really great because it allows you to provide really in-depth strategic value to a member of your target audience, and in return, get an email address or a phone number in exchange that allows you to contact them in some way. And speaking of email, email marketing has one of the best ROIs of all content marketing strategies because the cost of writing and sending an email is so low. And when it's done correctly, your email list is filled specifically with contacts who are already interested and primed in receiving messaging about your products and services. Guest posting and guest articles is the process of writing guest posts and articles on third-party websites. So this could be writing a blog for a partner website or working to publish your own content on Forbes. This can be a great way to reach new people in a meaningful way in places where your target audience is already reading and looking for content. PR or press releases, public relations, these are great ways to reach a wider audience, especially on the local level. And this can become a key building piece in your overall marketing strategy. Podcasting and radio. Radio's on a comeback. The other great thing about radio, it's really cheap right now. They're hard up for advertisers, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to get a radio spot. Podcasting has become incredibly possible, and it's never been more accessible to start your own podcast. But by its very nature, a podcast will build its own audience around a similar interest. So this could be a great opportunity to help dig deeper into your target audience. Webinars like these are a great opportunity to reach people who are interested in the products and services that you're offering. Influencers and partnerships. Influencers and potential partners already have an established audience. And a perfect example of this is Jules and myself. We have very different services that we ultimately offer, but we often work with the same individuals. So that creates a lot of partnership opportunities for us. Video is huge. We find video in social media, YouTube, ads, streaming ads. There are so many different ways and places that we can utilize video. On the physical side, seminars are a great way to make personal connections with your target audience. Speaking engagements are another great way to get out in public, to make your face and your brand recognized. Mailers and flyers are making a comeback, especially when done strategically. So we got something in the mail the other day because a roofer is working in our neighborhood, and so he just blanketed the block with letters just saying, "Hey, we're going to be around if you want us to stop by and do a free estimate of your roof. We'd be happy to stop by." So his truck is going to be visible. He'll probably have a yard sign out. He just sent the letter. He's really doing a great job of building that high level awareness of his brand. Similarly, postcards are often a great marketing technique as well, especially handwritten postcards. I know a local printer that actually offers handwritten postcards around the holidays, and they'll have basically an assembly line of writers writing out personalized messages that go out. But these are great ways, again, to make that personal touch with a very specific target audience. OOH and DOOH are out of home and digital out of home, but think about things like signs at the bus stop, bus wraps, those videos you see at the gas station, all of these different uh, pieces of content that you see outside and you don't even realize it, like the billboard. It's just there and you recognize it and you read it, and that eventually becomes part of your day and is ingrained in you. Events and activations are a great way to connect with your target audience and build these bigger marketing beats. And branded merch. We've all gone to events and gotten, a pen with a logo on it or a bag with a logo on it. Those have a time and place, but we're also seeing more and more companies develop cooler and cooler products that are unique to their business, that isn't just a pen, isn't just a bag, isn't just a ruler, can really help elevate the brand presence with the target audience over a long period of time. So we have all of these tools in our toolkit. How do we combine them together? And what does this actually look like in practice? So I wanted to give you an example of a content strategy that we've developed in the past. And then after that, we'll have an opportunity. We'll go through some final thoughts, and then we'll have some opportunities for questions. But we were working with a Pittsburgh-based real estate broker, and they really had two goals. They wanted to get inquiries from people who wanted to buy and sell houses, and they wanted to get inquiries from investors. Those were their two primary audiences. And what we did was we basically built out four different pillars for them. One was we started with a downloadable piece of gated content that really talked about the Pittsburgh market. And as they downloaded, or as audience members downloaded that piece of content, they gave up their contact information and put them through their sales process. In addition, we used some blogging to create organic traffic through Google. And what we did within each of those blogs was push visitors to their service pages, push them to the contact page, and then push them directly to that gated content as well to create additional downloads. We also developed their social media strategy to help build an initial audience, to demonstrate the brand's expertise, to push people to those blogs, and also push people directly to that piece of gated content. And finally, we developed an email strategy that helped nurture those new leads, especially those people who downloaded the gated content, but also use that to push them back into the website and back down through the sales funnel. And speaking of the sales funnel and the buyer's journey, this is what this actually looks like. And you might be familiar with this funnel on some level. We usually have an awareness stage where somebody is just becoming aware of your product or the problem that they have. From there, we have the consideration, interest desire stage where they're starting to make a decision to solve their problem. And then we have the action phase where they're actually purchasing something. So they're actually working with you. So we used the website and the SEO, blogging, and social media to make the brand more relevant and help people find it so that they were aware of it as they were working their way down the funnel. The website, those blogs, social media, gated content, and email were also useful in helping to differentiate the brand during that conversion stage or consideration stage. And then finally, the calls to action on the website and social media and in the email campaign were all really helpful on the action stage. So getting people to commit to this brokerage and working with them. So that's what the tools in your toolkit look like when they're working in unison. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Jules, do you want to bring it home with some final thoughts?
Sure, I'd be happy to. If we're going to wrap everything up into a nice, pretty bow, I would say ultimately our job, mine and Pat's, is to help businesses and brands have the boldest, most impactful content to break through the noise. That's really it, right? Break through the noise and be memorable. The process that we've discussed today and all the tactics and tools that have been shared, they're proven to deliver actual growth results much more efficiently and sustainably. So simply put, this stuff works and it does actually guarantee returns when the process is followed. If we cherry pick, it's a little bit tougher, but if we do it methodically, it's more science than art, honestly, when it comes to marketing. And that's a good thing because it means if you follow the process and you follow the steps, you get the results.
Love that. Really well said, Jules. Do we have any questions from anybody? Nicole.
Yeah, I have a question. Really great slideshow, by the way, guys. It was really awesome. I was curious if you could explain more of the thought process that you have starting after you've determined your audience and before you set that strategy. So, like, what kind of questions you find yourselves regularly asking in that development phase?
So you're saying, okay, help me, let me make sure I understand this correctly, Nicole. You're saying you've
Mhm.
got your established audience, your target persona figured out.
Yes.
And then your question is, what are those questions you ask in order to develop your unique value prop and your point of view? Is that the question?
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
just kind of like that strategy development.
Yeah, let me pull something up. I happen to have, and I love my worksheets and my Excel docs. So I'm going to pull up one of the worksheets that we actually use for that specifically.
And do
So
you
I
want
can
to,
actually give you some very specific questions.
would you like to share that, Jules? I can stop sharing on my side.
No, you know what? That's okay because I
Okay.
don't, it's kind of a mess.
Okay.
Let me let me pull it up and I'll read a couple of them off and then we can always follow up. All right. Let's see. Okay, so and I'll back it up a little bit just to give a little bit more context to the target persona. The target persona actually has a couple different components to it when we build it out. It's got something called a narrative, which is really an in-depth, here's who they are, here's how they think, here's why they think this way, here's their problem, and here's their frustration within our industry. It's a very in-depth description, I would say a couple paragraphs maybe, like 2 to 3. Then we also talk within our target persona, we talk about what is their buying behavior, what's their digital behavior, and we even take it a step further and go, what's a day in the life of this person that we're talking about? When do they get up? What do they do when they get up? Do they have a routine? Do they not? And throughout the day, who are they interacting with, right? We get this full picture, full, like really robust picture of who they are and their aspirations, their motivations, and their struggles as well. So that when we are looking at developing a unique value proposition, we are doing things to explicitly clarify what our brand does for that person and why it matters to them. So we want to really look at assessing what already exists for the client and how do we compare to that, right? So if we're saying, okay, I'm gonna take an easy one. Let's do Apple. Apple's such an easy product to look at, computers, right? When they're looking at the industry, and when they were a couple decades ago, when they came out like a force of nature, what they were looking at is, okay, everybody's got a computer that works to an extent, right? But it's kind of clunky. Most of the designs were pretty square. Most of the features like were just kind of boxy in general. So Apple came out and said, all right, from an analytical perspective, we're not really going to compete with people on processing power, memory power, battery life, because we'll be on the same area with them to keep costs similar. But we're going to make our design look and feel incredible. We're going to make the user interface totally different so it feels more engaging just in general. And we're going to give people this a different experience, right? So they said, all right, here's what's out there. Well, what can we do to make it better that solves a need for our client? So that's the unique value prop side. That's the analytical, practical side. On the emotional side, they also said, all right, well, no one's really proud to pull out their laptops. The brand of laptop they have or computer didn't really mean anything until Apple came onto the scene. Then they said, well, what can we do to possibly show that when you have an Apple product, this means you are a certain type of person? How can we connect with people emotionally so that they develop a pride with using our products and being an Apple consumer? They actually ended up saying, all right, we're going to make it so that people who use Apple are people who think different, people who break the status quo. And it's qualifying, right? I will say that too. With all of this work, we are saying very clearly what we are and who we are going after, and also what we're not and who we are not going after. And I cannot encourage all of my clients and anybody I talk to enough, be okay with saying we're for this person, we're not for this person. It's fine. It is we cannot be everything to everybody. So a couple of the questions that you can ask yourself when it comes to the unique value proposition specifically is what and how do we do things that is better than our competition? How do we fill a gap that they experience or a pain point that they experience within our industry? Okay. Then from a point of view perspective, the emotional side of things, what we're looking to say here is we want to offer a clear perspective of our customer and what they're up against. And basically, what we want to do with this is describe how the status quo is not good enough for them within our industry. We want to basically give a voice to the problem that they're facing, or could be the aspirational lifestyle that they're seeking, either one. And then we want to say, this is the way things are, this is the way they should be, because of some deeper emotional point. There's a turning point and a point of view that you want to capture. And what is that turning point that your brand offers and gives access to? So if I take mine, for example, mine and Pat's, actually, I think we both have a similar point of view on this one. We actually can create marketing that works, right? That's the analytical side. We get results. The emotional side is you can feel comfortable and confident with your investment of your money and your time because this shit works, right? So hitting on two different sides of solving the same problem for people. Does that help, Nicole, or do we want to go a little deeper?
No, that helps a ton, actually. That gives a lot of insights. I appreciate that.
And
Sure.
I'll add two more things to that. So sometimes just identifying your target audience really specifically does a lot of the heavy lifting. Regina and I have a friend named Jeff Zack, who is a business coach, but he's a business coach specifically for restaurateurs and brewery owners. And I can tell you, you can't swing a stick in Pittsburgh without hitting a business coach. I've met dozens of them. He's the only guy I know that works specifically with restaurant owners and brewery owners. And by drilling down that far and just saying, this is who I'm for, to Jules' point, he's saying also who he's not for, but he has a very specific target audience. And that by itself is a part of his key differentiator because he's not going after all of those people that other business coaches are focusing on. It's also I'll share one other thing with you here because I just found this on LinkedIn yesterday and I saved this for myself. This was in another post. Can you guys see this little image here? Um,
Yeah, I can see it.
okay, so this isn't a direct answer, but it is something that can help through this process. This was something somebody had posted on LinkedIn to help differentiate yourself and help you state your own value prop. And this is a formula that anybody can use. I'm a blank. I help blank do this thing with blank. And as we fill this in, we have a very clear mission statement and a differentiator. So this person wrote, I'm a copywriter. I help Shopify store owners decrease CAC with story-based ads. So very clear what they are, who they support, what they do, and how they go about it. And this is a formula that can be used over and over and over again in your work. We technically are out of time, but Jules, if you have one more minute, I'm willing to take another question. Okay, cool. Anybody else have another question? All right, perfect. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. This was a lot of fun. I will be processing this video. Everything's been recorded today, so we will send out the recording to everybody along with the slides. That'll come over, if not later today, first thing tomorrow morning, as we just wait for video speeds to process. But if that's, oh, I will show you one more thing before we wrap up here today. Let me make sure I share this again. If you would like to get in contact with either of us, and again, you'll have this slide deck, you can reach me at patrick@poeticamarketing.com. You can also visit poeticamarketing.com. Or you can contact Jules at Jules. Uh, is this your proper email address, Jules? Is it supposed to be the business of marketing?
Yeah, you can use that one.
Okay.
We could do the business of marketing.co too, but
Okay.
this one's going to be better.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And then you can also find her at thebusinessofmarketing.co.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining today, everybody.